Okay. So welcome, SashaTadayoni. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad that we got a chance to meet. I know you're a very busy man, so I appreciate your time.
I try. No, I think this is super fruitful, and thank you so much for inviting me over to do this.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think it will be of interest to many different people because you're a person, an individual with, many different aspects to your personality. So not everyone might be familiar with you. We'll get through all of the different roles that you're in your life. But to start with, can you tell us your journey, how you became a North American and a Canadian amateur 160-pound belt holder, and start there?
Ooh, okay. So, in a nutshell, there's a process that I went through. I guess the transformation I went through that started with a great deal of pain, and that was being at 24 years old, finding out that I had a spine herniation in my left side that left me pretty much immobile and borderline paralyzed until 27 years of age. So, I don't like talking about it too much. It is part of my story. But it's a pretty dark past. I got very depressed, suicidal for sure. And I openly talk about it now when people ask about it. But obviously during that time, like no one, I don't think anyone goes through those days thinking the other end is going to be so amazing, or that it might that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. You're just trying to survive through those moments. Coming from that is when I started my self-defense journey on trying to impact people with the martial arts that I had trained throughout. I did Kyokushin karate since I was 6 years old, and then I did some kickboxing and various other arts and combat arts. And it wasn't until around 27 years of age that there was some stuff happening at SFU and UBC. There were sexual assaults happening there. There were some other kind of weird things that were just happening every week, it almost felt like. And something about that moment struck a chord with me that I'm like, despite being in the position that I'm in and that I'm hobbling and I can barely walk, I would still have the fight or flight response to fight if need be. But I think it comes as a result of my training. So I reached out to a yoga studio, and that yoga studio allowed me to teach for free. And then within a couple months, I garnered almost 20 students or so. And then from there, one of my friends gave me a small loan to actually start a business. And that's kind of how my journey started. When I started the business, 3 months into it, my back healed miraculously, and I was able to walk again. Fast forward a year from then, it was my students who inspired me again to go compete, because I was getting in better shape again. I was able to, do my physical fitness. And it's kind of started the fire. And then I competed from then. And then from then on, I just didn't lose, I guess. I just kept on winning. And I think a lot of that has to do with that suffering, right? When you suffer that deeply, it's just like all the other kind of stresses in your life seem kind of minor in comparison. And then obviously COVID happened, and when COVID happened, it kind of ruined everything again. So again, off for another 3 years, and then I signed professionally. Now I'm a professional kickboxer. I have a self-defense studio that I teach with 5 other instructors. We have about 80 plus students now, and it's just things are really looking up. So I want to be on these kind of podcasts and topics to let people know not only is there a light at the end of the tunnel, but there's things that can be done. I should mention that we found out later on that I actually have Crohn's. So I have like an inflammatory disease. So that's probably what affected my back. And a lot of that gets triggered by emotional stress, physiological stress, and not being able to manage that stress, and how it showcases itself for me is it goes into my joints, whether it be in my spinal columns or my knees or anything like that. So I'm actually on a biological medication called Symphony, and I take that all the time, once a month. And yeah, but you know, again, I don't talk too much about it. I'm not trying to make people feel sorry for me. I'm
Mm.
like, that's not what I want. I just, if anything, I hope this story inspires others that are going through autoimmune diseases, that you can do great things. You don't need handouts. You just need to believe in yourself a little bit and ask for help. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you so much for sharing that. So that makes a lot of sense, because I was going to follow that up with what drives you to pursue this passion. And I think that you've like answered that really, really well. And I think it's maybe for some of you who don't know the Latin root of the word passion, actually there's to suffer in there. And so you really sum that up really perfectly with your story, which I do think is really inspirational. So thank you so much for sharing
no,
that, and
thank you.
for
I'm glad I survived.
getting into the roots of your story with us. Yeah, I really appreciate it. So as a professional kickboxer, I know you fight in Japan with Rise. You are a karate sensei, as you mentioned. You run at your dojo. You are the owner there, and then you're also a coach or a trainer there. You're leading classes there. So you have multiple demands on your time, and of course your body, which you've already mentioned that stress plays a role in, how the body is going to show up. And I just would love to know what you've learned along the way, how you manage to balance these various aspects of your life, like the entrepreneurship, the travel that must be involved, and the day-to-day demands of running a business and your personal life, and stay focused on your goals at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a balancing act, and I think there's going to be always certain elements of your life that are going to fall out of balance, whether it be, and there's different aspects of that. Like for example, a social life, or a romantic life, or like entertainment for oneself, and just being by yourself, and like family, visiting, father, mother, brother, and like, and all those things. There's always going to be a balancing act, and you're not going to always get it right. For me, the primary focus is always going to be my fitness and my overall health. It has to be, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't have the luxury almost of
Mm-hmm.
of being lazy about it, because then my autoimmune is going to go wild and I'm not going to be able to walk. And it's just like, so
Mm-hmm.
that makes it a little bit easier when people offer me foods that aren't good for me. It's easier to say no, because there's a direct link to how I feel after I eat such foods. So I just, it's like a constant reminder. I'm like, hey, if you eat this, you're going to be in a lot of pain tomorrow. I'm like, I don't want to be in a lot of pain tomorrow, so I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I'm still trying to learn how to have more fun with it, and be more in the present. So I go to, for those who don't know, I think it's really powerful to be admitting when you need help. So I actually see a therapist, and it's a behavioral therapist, and it's really helped put a lot of my, whether it be like past, I don't like using this word trauma so openly, but like, I guess, past stresses that I haven't dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would be considered per se trauma, but maybe they would be. I don't know. But my past stresses, and one of the things that I've had was just um, being so used to being busy, that when I am not busy and it's time for me to relax, my body would go into an anxious state. It almost
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to relax. So
Yeah.
learning to relax has been a journey. And
Mm-hmm.
I think whether you're a full-time student, an entrepreneur, maybe this might be something that's relatable. Like, you need to learn how to relax. You need to learn that there are moments that you take a step back and just kind of enjoy where you're at. So one of the things that I did recently was I took up motorcycling. I
Okay.
learned a motorcycle. Yeah, yeah. So with
That's exciting.
Pacific Riding, they're an awesome school. I'm going to give them a shout out here. An awesome school out in Surrey, like phenomenal, phenomenal. And yeah, like that, I did that. That's something for me, very much for me.
Mhm,
I've always
mhm.
wanted to do it. I learned it, and it was super well worth it. And I made time for it, sometimes I sacrifice social life, going out. So I play I play video games with my friends, and I really enjoy that. Like that's one way of socializing. But finding a way, and also I should say physical stress, like trying to find time to go to a sauna or a steam room or something like
Mhm.
that, because I think we fail to realize that stress, no matter what form, is stress. So whether you
Right.
exercise a lot and then you don't relax your body, that's still stress. And
Mhm.
you know the connection between the mind body mind connection, that's
Mhm.
they're connected with each other. So if you feel stress physically but you don't deal with it, that becomes an emotional thing. And same thing emotionally, if you don't deal with your stresses, it becomes a physical manifestation. So there's symbiotic relationship, right? um
Absolutely.
so yeah, I think yeah, I'm still learning. The only advice I would give to people is be intentional with, like, put it into your calendar, like I need to do X, Y, and Z to
Mhm.
feel better. And if the business needs to take a hold, then the business needs to take a hold, because how can you run a business if your health is at risk? I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like I sometimes
Yeah.
talk to people, I'm like, if you die, then is business really your concern?
Yeah, very, very good point. I think the fact that you're balancing the mental self-care, the physical recovery, those are both
Mhm.
crucial. And if you enjoy yourself in your personal time, then of course that's going to alleviate a lot of your stress. And like you say, there's this mind-body connection. We know it has such a strong impact one on the other, even if it's just the impact of stress hormones like cortisol on inflammation. Like we know that there's such a connection with these things. And oftentimes people that have autoimmune diseases have a stressor that happens
Yep.
beforehand. Oftentimes that's really, really classic. So yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I certainly think that a lot of the things that you mentioned are really spot on in terms of, yeah, absolutely. So with regard to, one of these practices for maintaining your physical health and well-being, I would say sleep is essential for any athlete's performance.
Super.
And yeah, I know that this is something that we've discussed in the past. How do you ensure that you get enough restorative sleep amidst this busy schedule that you keep?
um Again, like I think it's reminding myself that everything that I do has to be intentional. So unfortunately, I can't just go into autopilot, because autopilot means I just work and I train and then I forget to eat sometimes. That's autopilot. So being intentional with my sleep, be like setting a reminder or an alarm for myself that hey, at 11:30 is like when I need to go, like lights out, or at least the least I can do is stay away from blue light. So no more computer use, no more video games, no more anything that might like stimulate my brain to stay awake.
Mhm.
Actually, I had that discussion with you at one point. I was like, you're giving me a good advice. Like, you need to align yourself. I think what you said was you need to align yourself with the rising and the setting of the sun. I'm like, that makes sense. I am an earthling after all, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah. So that's really, I even noticed, just even say if I get to bed at 11:45 p.m.
Mhm.
So 23:45 for those who do the 24 hours cycles. Like even that, just because it's 15 minutes before midnight, I feel more refreshed. But if I go to bed at 12:15 a.m., like it'll be 8 hours, maybe even longer, and I still feel
Mhm.
not as refreshed from my sleep. So I don't know if that's a connection, but
Mhm.
your words keep playing in my mind. Of like, well, you didn't fall asleep with the setting of the sun.
Mhm.
That's your bad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do think those hours before midnight, if you get extra time in there, it's worth more than trying to make it up in the morning. Like it just has a different value. So I
Yeah.
think that you've
Yeah.
noticed
I've
that.
I've definitely
Yeah.
felt that physiologically. I
Mhm.
felt that, and so
Mhm.
yeah, I just like being a reminder. I'm obviously very guilty of it. Sometimes I do something that's I forgot the term for it, but basically you've been so busy throughout the day that when you have your own personal time, you're like, forget this. I'm gonna stay up. I'm gonna stay up because
Oh
I'm
yeah.
in control of my life.
Moms
But then
have
you
that
end
a
up staying
lot
up to
where we
what?
don't get any time to ourselves in the day. So we do this out of rebellion. We stay up at night just to
Yeah,
have some
yeah,
time to ourselves. So
yeah, yeah.
we're
I'm just like
guilty of
rebel.
that.
I'm like, yeah, that'll.
Yeah.
Yes, I gamed till 1 a.m. But then I'm like, I feel like crap. And then in the morning, a lot of my training is in the morning with WKX, my home gym that I train competitively with. And these guys come in ready to train. And these are all competitive guys. These are all elite fighters. These are all guys who are, they've decided that that's when they come. And I'll come in the morning. I'm like, I am so not ready for this energy right now. But you figure it out. And then I kick myself as I'm leaving. I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be better. Tomorrow I'm going to be better. And then when I am, I show up and I train. My mind is not foggy.
That's that
I'm ready to go.
intentionality, that setting of that intention where you have learned from that experience that you know how you want to do it next time. I think that's really important. Sometimes, like you say, autopilot is something that you fall into, and that's where you overwork. And that's obviously the opposite of intentionality. And actually, that would indicate that some of what you lived through before was trauma, because overworking is a trauma response. And so it indicates it likely was. It's a learned behavior that we do, right, to make us feel safe. So trauma, though, what's interesting about it is it's not the event that happens that's the trauma. It's how we react and interact with that, how it affects us. So that's where we can transform our trauma into something that no longer traumatizes us by changing the way that we think about it, the way that we feel about it, and how we respond. And it sounds like that's something that you've really done, because you're being much more intentional. And this is really something that I know that you've been focusing on for a long time. So you've kind of already covered this a little bit, but I know that the life of a sponsored athlete can be both rewarding and challenging. And I would just love it if you could share some of the biggest struggles that you faced. I know when you started out, you had a really big struggle, but if there's anything else that you'd like to share about how you've overcome your struggles or anything as you went through it that would help others that are listening to us right now.
I think first one is sleep. Figure out your sleep. Because just it is wild how it is amazing how much of a difference it makes when your sleep is on target, that there's a pattern when you sleep, when you wake. That's made a big difference. So in fact, I get more aligned with my overall health and well-being when it comes to sleep when there's a fight camp. Like when I have a competition, like the ones coming up next week, when there's a competition, there's no opportunity almost to cheap out on my sleep. So I have to be on it. Very intentional. Second thing is your diet. Obviously, eat things that make you feel good sometimes, and like eat things that you enjoy, but they might not be the best for you. But again, being intentional with what you're eating to the point where then that becomes a habit, because you'll know, like if you stay away right now, especially when I stay away from salty foods and things like that, as I'm trying to cut water, as soon as I have foods that have quote unquote salt in it, I realize how either sweet they were or how salty they were, because my palate has now cleansed itself almost. And then you realize like, oh crap, this doesn't make me feel that good. And it only feels good to eat those certain foods at certain venues or certain events. So then I channel that I compartmentalize that in my brain, and I say, okay, well, when I'm doing this, I can have X, Y, and Z, because it does make me feel good overall. Even if the next day I feel a little bit groggy, it's okay. I'll go run it off. I'll sweat it up. But as a daily thing, can't eat those foods. Can't eat chips every day. I love chips, by the way. That's like my savory snack of choice. And you have a bag of that. Good luck. Good luck. I already know, like, I'll have a bag very intentionally, knowing that the next day I'm gonna have to do something because I'm gonna feel crap. And then the third thing that's been really helping is supplementation. This is something that I discussed at length with you, Dana, and brain health. So for my sport, I do kickboxing and I train MMA and things like that. And there's a lot of head trauma. So I really strongly suggest any guy or gal who is doing combat sports or any sports that involves impact, for you to take some kind of brain health medication. I take eHealth or eBrain, and one of my sponsors, Popeyes in Burnaby and Coquitlam. if you go there, mention my name, they will help you out. They've been great, and they with Dana's help, I was able to get eBrain, which pretty much has everything that I need there, ashwagandha and a couple lion's mane and a couple other things, and I've really felt a deep sense of clarity when I have those things and they're in my system, and those have really, really helped. That's really, really helped. Just stabilize my mood almost, because sometimes like you get hit and your brain jostles a little bit, and the moods that I get into aren't me. I notice I'm like, I'm a little bit more blue than usual. I have nothing to be blue about or sad about. What the heck's going on? Like, oh, okay, maybe I had a hard spar yesterday. So I those have been really helping with my regulating my thoughts. So yeah, I would say those are the top three. It's sleep.
Wonderful.
If you notice, exercise is not even on there. Sleep, diet, and then some of the supplementation,
Yeah.
and then I think obviously then being active
I think
brings
being
it all
active
together.
is such a foundational piece for you that you couldn't
Yeah.
even imagine your life without being active. So these
Yeah,
are
I guess so. Like for me,
right?
it's just like active is like you got to be
Yeah,
active,
that's the
but it's
foundation.
like breathing. But yeah,
Yeah.
for those who aren't used to it, but like then activity brings it all together. Like you can have
Yes,
all those three together, but if you're not being active, it won't glue them
right.
properly. So
Mm-hmm.
activity, I think, then brings it together, right? So
Wonderful. Yeah. So your role, especially you're mentally and physically mentoring others, you're coaching others, you are a trainer, you're a karate sensei. At your Modern Warrior Academy of Self-Defense, you're leading a variety of different types of trainings and courses with people. But how is specifically teaching martial arts and training since childhood in martial arts impacted your own personal growth?
well, I think it's like the fact that martial arts inherently doesn't have like an off season. There's no off season to train. You just train. It's a lifestyle choice that you make. And I love doing other sports. To me, other sports are like a game, and then martial arts is just the lifestyle that I've chosen, like something that I just do as part of my daily routine, because it's inherently the art focuses on personal development and only personal development. That's the only thing that matters. How much suffering you go through in the dojo creates empathy, right, for your fellow man. The fact that you're wearing a uniform makes you all equal all of a sudden, right? It doesn't matter where your belief or lineage or whatever, all that kind of stuff. You're just wearing this uniform, you're training together, you're suffering together. And then the fact that you're trying to compare yourself to what you were yesterday always. You're always trying to better and improve yourself. So whether that be going into a competition or prepping for a competition or just showing up daily to achieve a new rank, like it's always a competition with the self. It's some call it a very selfish sport, I guess. And it can be for sure, but I think I always remind myself that I'm only in there and I'm only as good as the people that I surround myself by. So my coach is always in my corner, my team is always in my corner, my sponsors are always with me. Like I am in there by myself, but I'm not really in there. To get in there, it took a team of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think martial arts just inherently teaches you to work good as a group. You might you
Mm-hmm.
might end up training with people that you don't necessarily like. It's okay. Like figure it out. How do you play nice, And but yeah, it's that setting a goal, setting an intention of a goal and then trying to achieve it, and then training for perfection, even though you know perfection is not possible.
So do you have any advice for listeners on effective goal setting?
Mm, make tangible goals for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think tangible, winnable goals. And I read this somewhere, and see, I'm not good. I retain stuff, but I can't remember where I read it for the life
Okay.
of me.
Mm-hmm.
But um, little wins, having little wins is really important. Was it a Dale
It's
Carnegie
something that
book?
you
I don't
mentioned
know.
before, earlier on. It was that, that you stop and enjoy along the way. And I think it's really important to stop and celebrate and notice and reflect
Yeah, for
on your
sure.
successes and your wins. Because
Yeah,
it's really what motivates us internally to keep going, right?
yeah, for sure. Like I
Mhm.
know there's some people right now that I train and they say, "Oh, I want to aesthetically look this way." I say, "Okay,"
Hmm.
but like how we look changes over time as we get older. A more tangible goal would be like, how do I want to feel at a certain time of my life? Or or maybe there's like a movement that you can't do. So with respect to martial arts, because it's all about, I think true freedom is being able to move my body in whatever way I desire, no
Mhm.
matter what the age. I think that's true freedom. So, for example, if you can, we'll just think of a push up. If you can only do 5, a tangible goal would be like, at the end of the month, I'm going to do 10. Okay. So that goal setting right there is small enough that it could give you a win, but it's also real enough that you can see the change for you to do 10. And for you to
Mhm.
do 10 requires your body to change. You
Mhm.
cannot look the same, even aesthetically, if you
Yes.
like from 5 to 10. To do 10
Wonderful.
requires a little bit of
Mhm.
more muscle mass, maybe a little bit more control. Like you'll see those changes. So, for example, like a lady that I'm training, she can't do a chin up. And I say, okay, let's make the goal so that you can do one chin up by yourself. Oh, but I really want to lose weight and all that stuff. I'm like, just focus on doing the one chin up. Because, and then she started to lose weight and now she can do the chin up. Well, how's that possible? Well, because the body is like understanding the stress that you're putting it under. It's
Mhm.
making the appropriate changes so
Mhm.
that you can do that chin up. That is such a
Mhm.
more tangible goal. And she looks better now.
Mhm.
Magic,
Mhm.
right? Versus if you just
Mhm.
focus on like, I need to look like X, Y, and Z. Well, genetics play a huge role in how we look aesthetically. So
Sure.
that's outside of your control. Sleep and diet, we just discussed, super important. If those
Yeah.
aren't online, then nothing's going to change, right?
Yeah.
But
Thanks
then
for
if you
sharing your
focus on
insight.
tangible
Mhm.
small goals, I think, and then
Mhm.
just keep moving towards the next big
Mhm.
thing, the next big thing, I think that that works way better for your mental health, and you'll actually
Mhm.
see change. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, more inspiring, more motivating, I think, to work on the transformation that you can see, that you can feel in terms of your performance or some other thing like that. I think that's a very healthy way to focus. I think that's great because I know you do work with a variety of different types of people, and that's a
Mhm.
healthy way to frame it for anyone, because I think so many of us, men, women of all ages, we have some degree of like body dysmorphia or some kind of, you
Well,
know,
social media has made it
yeah, yeah,
like
it
the
makes
best way to do that. Just go on social media for 5 minutes, and I'm sure
Mhm.
you'll feel pretty crappy about yourself really
Speaking
quick.
of social media, though, how do you stay connected with your fans and followers? Has social media played a role in your journey?
I think social media definitely was a very toxic thing for me at one point or another, and even right now, I go on it way more than I should. But
Mhm.
I think since starting to post every day and trying to focus on posting content that I think would be useful for a younger version of myself, that's how I post. A
Wonderful.
younger version of myself. What would have been so fruitful for me watching and learning when I was
Mhm.
younger?
Mhm.
And that's how I post.
That's
That's
perfect.
literally
Yeah.
that's how I post. It's like I wish I had this stuff, and then so I
Perfect.
post it. And whether people
Yeah.
like it or not, it's like I really don't care. It's almost like not for them. It's
Mhm.
for me. And then, but if you find it useful, then great. But I try not to post too much of um my personal life on my I'm going to be maybe opening up my own Instagram, like my personal. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but like a personal Instagram where it's just like my friends and family, so I don't share
Okay.
with everybody.
Okay.
But like my own page is always going to be content that's related to martial arts, or content that's going to be helpful, or content that I think
Mhm.
people will enjoy in general, whether they
Yeah.
find it funny or not, and all that stuff. Kind of just impact related, and then
Yes.
uh and then yeah, and then being absolutely really real and candid with everybody. I mean, um
That's refreshing.
yeah, it's not just about the notoriety or attention. It's about like, what do I want my students to see? Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I know that a lot of your material that you're posting is very actionable. It's definitely bite size in it, but it's also there's really good information, really good content that
Hmm.
people can work with right away. So it's really valuable. I think you're giving a lot of value to people. I did also see you recently post something really interesting about testing your VO2 max and your biological age. And I thought that was really interesting. When I used to manage a health club, VO2 max was like our measurement of choice for checking and sort of measuring people's fitness journeys. And now, through applied nutrigenomics, I tend to help people move their biological age. That's something I have a real interest in, my own biological age, using certain types of foods, and knowledge of my genetics and things like that. I'm working on that. So is there anything about those data points, like learning them, measuring them, that changed anything about the way that you'll train or gave you any insight that you didn't already know about your body?
Well, it was so useful and interesting to see like where my fitness level was at, which was really kind of like, I want to let people know I'm in pretty good shape right now. So I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good and very confident. And for this match, I'm very excited for it. But
Right.
it's just like putting things in perspective. So I have a strength and conditioning coach, actually, right? Yeah, strong side, represent. So he I was able to share those numbers with him, and then we kind of got a metric of where we're at and where our weaknesses were at and where their
Mhm.
strengths were. So exactly, we could see the numbers of like, okay, us working on the anaerobic side is like it's working. It's right there.
Yeah.
Here's some other areas that need work or whatever else. I actually ended up finding out that um, you know, certain muscle groups uh, that might have been out of balance. So that was kind of interesting as well, just being able to see that footage and being like, oh, okay, like this area I need to work harder on.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I highly suggest anyone who's like serious about their fitness and they just want to see where they're at, because it's such a great starting point too. Like say if you're out of fitness, you could just do it and then do it again later on and just really
Yeah.
compare.
It's always
I
great
think
to
it's
have
if you're
data.
serious about it and you want to see it, do the test. It's well worth. So
Mhm.
I actually did it at Manhas Health.
Mhm.
They're one of my sponsors, so they're awesome, and I am working out a deal with them with my students. So anyone who goes there, they can try out the VO2 Max there. Just yeah.
Wonderful. You've got some really great people behind you, really nice sort of sense of community team. I know that you have a lot of community in the martial arts world, because that's such a great community, but you also have all these other types of people that are supporting you, like you say, and like people that you're partnering with, or that are supporting you in some way as a sponsored athlete. And I think that that's really great. Are there any other ways that you are enjoying, like hobbies or passions or other things that has influenced you as an athlete or as a business owner, that has been helpful for you in terms of, you said that you're focusing on having more joy and things like that. I'm just wondering, like, how do you make time for joy in your life with all of these different, responsibilities that you have to all these different parties out there?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think yeah. Again, I hate to cop out on this answer, but it's being intentional. It's being intentional. Like even joy sometimes is a choice. That sounds so cringy, but it's kind of true, because I have to choose. I have to be. So I keep saying to my students too, I'm like, pay attention to your intention, because that's really important. Where your intention goes, energy will flow, right?
Mm.
So for me, being intentional with wanting to have more fun has been really challenging. Making time for myself, like maybe even taking a step back and having a little bit more faith in the people around me to either teach more or take over certain classes and yeah, and just and no, and then acknowledging that I can't do everything. I cannot do everything by myself, as much as
Mhm.
I want to think that I can.
Yeah.
And I have to move in faith and know that the people around me are also confident and they can handle things, and giving them if anything, what I've learned from entrepreneurship and learning from other people that inspire me, like businesses around me that do well, and I try to learn from them, is how much work they do in order for their workers to be able to just work at their craft. I think
Yes.
that not only is inspiring, but it really puts it in perspective. Like, um, I watch Gary Vee and some of those other stuff, and as I was thinking about that, and as I was seeing that, he mentioned that too. When one person asked him, I think, like, how do I get my workers to work hard on their craft? And he's like, you can't. You have to work hard at your stuff. It's not
Right.
their job. You own the business. You
Yeah.
work hard, and you set the tone. And if they want to work hard or not, it's like it's up to them. They're the workers. You own the thing. They will never outwork you, or nor should they. I'm like, yeah, that's
Mhm.
true. So if anything, I'm supposed to remove barriers from my instructors and the people around me that are helping me, remove barriers for them so that I can let their skill set shine. That's my job.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've definitely experienced that as someone who now has a full-time employee in my coaching business. It's hard to give up the control, even though you want the support as a business owner.
Yeah.
And my great aunt used to teach Bruce Lee when he was a little boy in San Francisco. And
Wow.
she, I know he had a quote, I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you're not in this world to live up to mine. And I think that, we need to give them what they need to do, but allow them to find their way to do it in a
Yeah.
way that is that is using their strengths, right? So we need to empower them to find their way to get
Yeah.
the problem solved. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's definitely a little bit challenging being able to step back and be like, "Can I trust you with this?" I'm like, regardless whether I can or cannot, only time will tell. Like, I have to be willing to give that up and kind of watch over it, have a set expectation, and if it doesn't meet that expectation, then I make decisions based on that afterwards. But in the meantime, I have to I have to have faith. Like, just go here.
Hmm.
Here's my baby. Please take care of it, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well, I think that we've had some really important themes. The importance on really balancing your mental and physical self-care with all the demands on your time. One of those things certainly is sleep. Addressing your stress by making sure that you're intentional and that you're building joy into your life, and that you are learning to trust others and let them take on some of the jobs that you yourself maybe don't need to do
yeah,
personally. I think you mentioned the importance of nutrition as a nutritionist. I love that. Supplementation, including some of the ones that you mentioned for brain health, are also really good for managing stress and being adaptogenic as well. So I think that's
hmm.
really perfect. I really think, being intentional is the overall theme that I'm hearing from you. Is there anything with regard to your future aspirations that you'd like to tell us about for your career as an athlete, as your role as, with the Modern Warrior Academy of Self-Defense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tell us about.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to create a space of health, or a space of empowerment. So I'm hoping Modern Warrior will eventually become a brand where Modern Warrior is like, it's like Modern Warrior Academy, and then within this academy it has health and fitness and strength building and martial arts and like nutrition and things like that. It becomes like this overall umbrella where it's like this one stop Costco type shop where you go, you like a no brainer. Like, you go to Modern Warrior to get empowered as an individual overall. And I think I'm taking strides towards that. I'm starting to bring in more into my life people like that, and I'm super grateful for it. So I'm really excited. If we can continue the course, I think we were going to get there. And as far as me personally as an athlete, for those who don't know, I'm 34 years old and I feel really good. And I got into the professional league quite late, not from any fault of my own, just circumstances of life. But I want to pursue it as best and as vehemently as I can before the time is up. So
Mm.
whenever the time is up, I will gracefully step down. But in the meantime, I really want to get the Rise belt. I want to showcase that I belong there. I want to showcase that I belong at the upper echelons, and I can hang with them. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to transition to MMA as well, and gonna get a few fights there and see kind of where it goes from there. But I
Right.
want to just do this as best I can. I've put a kind of a time limit for myself, like 38, 39. That's kind of like where I want to maybe stop. But again, I don't know. It really depends on my body. Maybe earlier, maybe later. Maybe I'm on a roll. We're not going to stop.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, congratulations on having a biological age of 24.
Ooh, you like that, right?
I
Yeah.
like that a lot. Yeah, I absolutely think that that's something that you could probably maintain because you've got such great habits and you've had such a lot of really words of wisdom for our audience today. I really appreciate it. I know you're leaving for Japan, in just the next couple of days. So, good luck and all the
Thank
best
you.
to you there. And yeah, I know there are a lot of people, fighting. So yeah, I'm glad that you're so well prepared and as fit as you are. That's wonderful. And I know that you'll do really, really well. No
Thank
doubt
you
about
very
it.
much. I really appreciate it. I think everything that you bring up, Dana, I think it's so fruitful, and I'm just so glad that I was able to even just momentarily help out and spread your words of wisdom to everyone. I think Dana has been one of the single best help I've received with regards to supplementation and just being able to help with my brain health and sleep. So I would highly recommend her to anybody. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Yeah, my current focus this week is the relationship to how we value ourselves and our own self-worth.
Hmm.
And if we have a certain level of self-worth, it enables us to do a better job of taking care of ourselves. And I think you really
Yeah.
exemplify that you're really doing a good job. But what I find super inspiring is that you used your desire to be of service to others to like get the ball rolling for you, that's what started. And then that community that you built came around
And
you
then
and
in turn helped
then
me. I
turned it
know
and
it's
helped you. And I
it's
just
super
think it's
crazy
so
how that
beautiful.
works. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
honestly that. That's why I say like a lot of people like they it's really strange for me when I see people like showcase their pains in such a way to get. I'm not gonna mention names, but there's some fighters out there who nah, I'm not even gonna say fighters, but there's some people just overall that they share their pains, but I'm not quite sure what they're sharing it for. If it's for garnering attention or if they're genuinely trying to inspire other people. Like when I eventually shared my pain, I wanted to let people know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like I don't want you to feel sorry for me. If anything, I just want you to be like you can do this too. I'm no different from you. Like, oh, but you're this fighter. Like, who cares? Like, that's just the passion or the path that I chose. You can be doing anything, but if you're not intentional, if you don't really believe that you first need to help yourself before you've helped others, it's not going to work out for you. Like for me, it was like I have this skill. I can still help some people. I can still be of service. Like just
Mhm.
let me do that so I can get out of my own head. So and then
Yeah,
as I was doing that, then the idea of the business came up. And honestly, if my friends hadn't believed in me and given me a loan, I would not have been able to do it. And then
beautiful.
when I started that, and then I healed. So it was almost like, hey, you need to get out of your own head, be of
People
service.
believed in you, and then it helps you to believe
Yeah,
in
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
just a cyclical energy.
it does get you out of your head. It helps to change your chemistry from a chemistry that's stress and that isn't doing your body any favors to an
Mhm.
empowerment, one of empowerment, right? So I just love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's
No
very
problem.
inspirational. I know you're very busy and we've been talking for almost an hour, so I'm going to wrap up, but I'm really glad that you could make the time to join us today.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for having
yeah,
me.
all the best.
See you guys.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Us.